So, 2020 is cancelled, but there's still lots to get excited about between now and next year. This week on the official Coventry Bears podcast, we'll set out exactly what. This is Bear Necessities. Welcome to Bear Necessities, your official Coventry Bears podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and at coventrybears.com. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Musson, and joining me, as always, is my co-pilot and former Bears fullback, Craig Cathcart. Craig, 2 shows in 2 weeks. Who'd have thought it? How are you?
I know, I'm going to get tired now after having that long break and getting straight back into it. But it's good to get back into the old routine. I'm enjoying thinking about rugby league again and thinking about the weeks and months ahead.
Definitely. And that's exactly what we're looking at this week. So on this episode, we are continuing our interview with Bears Director of Rugby, Alan Robinson. If you missed last week's show, do go and check it out. We chatted all about 2020 and the season being cancelled and all of that kind of stuff. This week, we're talking about what's going on between now and next season. And again, I'm not going to waste any time getting into the interview because this is a really great interview. So do get comfy and make sure you're listening out for news about the Bears coaching setup for next year and also an exclusive about next year's playing kit. So for this next part of the chat, then I just wanted to focus on what's happening for fans to look forward to between now and next season. And I mean, we've got the return of Tritag and the big charity bike ride to talk about in a bit, but I thought we'd start with Bears stuff. I mean, we're at that point of the year where, had this been a normal season, the recruitment cycle would be kicking up into gears anyway. Does that change at all this year? I mean, I assume you're evaluating what players you've got on your books already and deciding which ones to re-sign and maybe which ones are perhaps not the right fit for next year. Are we looking at another big squad overhaul? I mean, how's it all looking at the moment?
We have addressed the position that we're in at the minute, and I think really we did carry a squad last year that was probably a little bit larger than what we had liked, but I think that was due to the nature of how things had panned out with the changes that we had in coaching staff. Rich Squires will now step up and become sort of fully fledged head coach as such. That'll be something that we'll be reporting on in the coming weeks. But as well as that, we're hoping to strengthen that coaching team again. But really, we've looked at the squad, and I think we want to be able to focus on being as competitive as possible next year. The nature of everything next year, a lot of the other clubs are going to be looking to get promoted into Championship, and when you look at the likes of Newcastle, Ottawa coming in, Barrow, Keighley, at the moment, a lot of those clubs are looking to sign big players. They're spending money. We really need to be, as competitive as we can next year. I think next year is going to be the most challenging year in the history of the club, without doubt. Not just because of what's going on this year, but just I think what's at stake really going forward. There's still some unknowns with the TV deal. What's going to be happening with League One and Championship and Super League even. There's discussion at the moment about obviously what Super League is going to look like and what all the professional leagues are going to look like next season and into the future. So there's a lot of uncertainties, and everybody's looking to be as competitive as possible to get the best team on the field. And my philosophy around that, as I've mentioned, is we've got to be competitive. We've got to start getting to a point where our players can front up one-on-one in the middle of the park, be able to get us to the right areas of the field, and be able to score tries and not concede points and actually be competitive in the middle of the park and competitive across the park, man for man. And we've got to raise the standard of what we do. we do have. I have got some ideas about how we're going to be training, about some changes we've made off the field. That'll be something we'll make very apparent to the fans and to the. Certainly now we're working on that at the moment, but with lockdown and with the difficulties of COVID, it's about getting things in place and being able to get access to facilities and things like that are what we're working on at the minute. So some of those are a little bit dependent on that, but once we know where we're going to be getting ready for pre-season, then I think we'll make some big statements over the next few months around how we're going to, how we're going to be getting the squad ready and how we're going to be building up towards pre-season. We will be releasing a batch of players. I think really some of the reasoning behind that is around maybe the fact that they've been with us for a little while. Did they have room to develop still, or would they be able to, come back in and pick up where they left off and be able to push on again? That again is a challenge, and I think there's been some really difficult decisions there for us to make. But again, it'll become apparent. Those decisions will become apparent, and why we've done what we've done, because we want to strengthen in those areas, and we have done some recruitment to successfully to do that, I believe. So I don't want to give away too much, obviously, because I think everyone's probably wondering what any new signings we're going to be making and things like that. But what I will say is we do have some really exciting new signings in the pipeline. We do have probably a good majority at the moment. I'd say maybe 10 players already over the line, which we'll be announcing in the next couple of weeks. Some of those are players that we've retained from last year that really, I believe can add a lot to the squad going forward. I do think we may reduce the squad a little bit so we can have more of an opportunity to focus on, the squad itself. But again, I think there's other ideas I have around how we can bring more players through, that can begin to get towards League One. Because there's so many challenges locally within the Midlands region. And I think that's something that we have to address as a club now, going into the next couple of years. How can we, work with the region? How can we find more talent and bring it through successfully so we can have players that can, be able to step up to League One? That's going to be critical for the future of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and of course we've seen that you've put the call out for recruitment on the social channels recently as well, and I know you've done those trials in the past, so and they've proved to unearth a few gems. So we'll certainly all be looking forward to the results of that as well. And I know from the last update that you put out with the club in terms of around season tickets and memberships, obviously you're giving fans the chance to roll over next year if they want to, and I'm sure most of the Bears supporters will back you on that sort of thing. One thing I was curious about was, and it's one of your favourite topics actually, is we've talked about players on the pitch, but what are they going to be wearing? Because obviously we barely got a chance to see these beautiful new kits you made for 2020. Are they going to become an instant cult classic rarity? Are we expecting new designs for 2021? What's the deal there?
I can exclusively reveal that we will be sticking with those designs, and we will be sticking with those kits next year. I think really the designs are very classic. They lend themselves so well, I think, towards what next year is going to be for the club, with the city culture and the city. We've got the World Cup at the end of the year. We've got a very traditional Coventry colours, blue and blue, and we have the black and white two-tone design, which I think both of those jerseys are really reflective of what we've tried to do in this sort of new era. So I think this sort of new era of what we're trying to do into next year has got to be carried on. And we are really, really brilliant feedback from everybody in regards to those jerseys, and we sold quite a few at the beginning of the season. What I am hoping to do is reveal that majority of the sponsors will be carrying on with us. I think actually everyone I've spoken to so far will be continuing with us, and that'll be something I'll be confirming in the press, in our own press going forward now in the next few months. I'm hoping to secure a few more sponsors on those jerseys as well. So actually, there'll be an enhancement as such. We will look at, I think, releasing those jerseys again before Christmas, and we might even look at what else we could release that may be a little bit different, a little bit new. But I think the best thing to do will be for everyone to just keep their eye on that. We've got so many exciting things going on next year with the community, with the World Cup, with the City of Culture. Hopefully, everyone will get behind us and what we're trying to do, and it'll be sort of a, shall we say, a restart, pressing the reset button, getting ready to go again, and hopefully, those kits are just, still look great. So they're sat in a bag, they've been washed and clean and all ready to go again. So I think it'd be a real shame if we didn't carry that legacy on, but put a good positive spin on it into next season.
Nice. So something else coming up that fans can really get behind is the big charity bike ride from Hull to Coventry as part of the City of Culture celebrations, and the bike ride is taking place next month. I mean, just tell me a bit more about it. Like, who's involved? What's the thinking behind it? How can fans support it? All of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we got thinking, I think, in lockdown about a lot of different things that we could do to perhaps engage the players, engage the fans, and get people thinking about something, that we can do some good towards next season. But also, I think really primarily it was about the players. What could they do as a group to get back together again? Rather than having to wait all the way to pre-season, and could we get the boys back together again? Could they do something positive, not just for themselves, but for the club and for the community of what we're trying to do leading up to the World Cup? And some of the guys there, Ryan Langton and Liam Wellham, and some of the boys in Hull have done some fundraising for Hull FC. They're involved with us, and they're quite innovative with their ideas. And I think it was something we talked about. And I think with Hull being the previous City of Culture, I thought, what can we do there? Can we do something between Hull and Coventry, tie them both together? We've got that connection with Hull with a number of players, and the boys came up with the idea. And I think, again, Rich and the boys, and we've been talking about it now for quite a while. Actually, it's only really come out, but it's been something that's been discussed and ongoing for probably a couple of months. But it's all in planning at the minute. We're looking to raise money really to go into the Bears in the community, which will be to going towards our community fund, which we've secured through the Rugby League World Cup capital grant, the Capital Legacy Fund. We're going to be setting up 3 new satellite clubs in the Coventry and Warwickshire area with 4 junior age groups each. So that's a massive project that's going to be coming up early next year. So we want to raise some more actual funds for that, because the 15k that we secured really just goes towards kit and equipment. We don't have any cash. That's all brought through in kit and equipment. So we're looking to raise some money that we can put into coaching and running those clubs and getting things in place for those clubs. The fans, obviously anyone involved in the club, friends, family, fans can donate anything at all. Would be really, really greatly appreciated. There's a GoFundMe page that's linked through CoventryBears.com. It's on the news section on the bike ride article. There's also we're doing a bike ride sublimated shirt, which people can sponsor for only £100. They can have their company on there. Those jerseys are going to be printed and worn by the players. They're going to be printed by Scorpion Sports and worn by the players. So that's something else we're doing to raise the money. And it's really just something positive, something to get the boys together. It's another sort of team bonding opportunity. But I think really the boys wanted to get together again, and now things have eased a little bit. It allows us to do that and do something positive as well.
And are you getting on the saddle and joining them as well?
No, I'm not. I think I'll be in the support team. I think I'll be there with water, with food, with maybe even with the odd puncture kit if it's needed. But I think it's going to be actually quite a adventure because we're looking to do it over 2 days really, and to be able to arrive in Coventry on the Sunday afternoon rather than arriving in the middle of the night. It's a good over 150 mile bike ride. So it's a bit of a challenge. And certainly if the weather's anything like it is at the moment, it's going to be really tough. So, everyone's looking forward to it, but we're all looking forward to seeing each other again.
Yeah, I bet. And we've also heard recently that that Tritag Rugby is being given the go-ahead to start again. Firstly, you must be really pleased about that. I mean, for people listening who have always perhaps wanted to give it a go, can they still get involved with Tritag this year once it gets going?
Yeah, I mean, it's going now. We just launched again last night at Memorial Park. Troy Perkins and I obviously run the franchise for Tritag Rugby. The Bears is something we promote through the Bears as well, and it's part of it's been a real key part of a lot of community stuff that we've done, and it's found us fans, it's found us volunteers. It's something that's great for health and well-being, and I think through the pandemic, everyone's wanted to keep fit and keep active. And last night we launched it again at Memorial Park. I think we had about 10 teams. It was really, really brilliant, really positive. Obviously, with all the restrictions in place and for COVID, but it worked really, really well. And the fact that Tritag Rugby is back is another little part of the puzzle for rugby league and for the sport to get people playing again. And that itself again is so positive. And I think the fact the weather's been really nice has been a bonus to it. And I mean, I even got on the field myself last night, did some refereeing, and it's really enjoyable. And it's just good to see people again, and I think everyone's been locked up at home and not seen many people, and you can see the smiles on people's faces just greeting each other with a wave, which has been brilliant, really, really brilliant.
One thing I was curious about, I mean, I feel like I've got to know you a little bit over the time of doing this podcast. And one thing I always know about you is you are always full of ideas. And this pandemic has probably given you a bit of thinking time. So aside from all the World Cup related stuff, which we'll talk about in our next episode, I was curious if you just hatched any other new schemes that you can tell us about that, while you've had this extra thinking time.
Yeah, you know me pretty well, Dave. I think I always look at the club and think, what can we do to move forward? What can we do to move forward with the club? And I think two things really that struck me over the period of time that we've had when we've had no activity is I started to look at the sort of activity that's been going on in the region of the Midlands, and I think it's been difficult. Obviously, when you're running your own club, it's really, really difficult to run a club, an amateur club, and a semi-professional club like the Bears. And I think one thing I really wanted to, or became apparent to me, was the fact that across the sport, as in general, the strength of the sport is within the people that know each other within the sport. And I do know a lot of people in the region and in the Midlands, and I think I've probably been put back in contact with a number of people, and started to look at perhaps how we can work together. And I mean, just as an example, I suppose the likes of Derby City, John Doughty there, and Adam Bates at Sherwood, at the Wolf Hunt, and I've recently got back in touch with Jason Spafford at New Ravens, and all those guys have had their own sort of problems and issues within their own clubs, and there's been a number of other clubs that say sprouted up, and I think the fact that the region has been quite separate and quite separated over the last few years, and the fact that we used to be really, really heavily involved in the region as a club that played in the region. And I suppose over the last maybe 10, 15 years, we've, shall we say, transcended a bit into the higher levels of the game, but other people are still here and still doing a great job and still trying to develop the game in the region. And I mean, that's one thing that's really become apparent to me is the importance of that. So I reflected quite a bit on that, and I think one idea I've had that I'm starting to work on at the moment, and again, I don't want to give too much away, but we've got an idea around a project where we can perhaps create another offer just below the Bears that would sit between the Midlands region and the Bears in regards to a playing opportunity, where we could bring young players through, we could bring new volunteers through, new coaches through, work together to look at what we can do to enhance the game in the region. And I almost feel, although, it's hard always when you look at it thinking we've got to give ourselves more work to do, but I think when you look at some of the great people we have around the region and what they're trying to do, and you actually look at the kind of greater good of the game, when you look at what's coming at the end of the year with the World Cup and with the legacy, that's the sort of thing that brings everybody together. And I think people have looked back and sort of thought and understood maybe where their place is within the game, and where they want to do and what they want to do with their clubs as well. So I think that's something without not giving too much away. I've started to talk to a number of those clubs around, look, what can we do to perhaps build a pathway, from the amateur game through to League One and the higher aspects of the game, in general. And I mean, everyone in any community club in the region that has juniors playing or has players playing open age, there's guys in there or there's families in there that maybe watch the game or have aspirations to play a higher level. And suppose you got to think, well, at the moment, that's us at that higher level within the region. And, we want to be successful for ourselves, but we want to be successful for Midlands Rugby League. And you look at what the likes of Newcastle have done. They've got a great community set up. They've got a great relationship and partnership with a lot of their clubs in the Northeast. And you look at London Broncos and they're building similar things in the South. And really, we want to be able to start to do that as well. But there's something missing below the Bears to bring players through. And that doesn't necessarily always have to be, say, like an academy or a tier 3 academy or something professional. That could be something else. And let's say I've got a couple of really exciting ideas around that, and hopefully that may be something that we might see in the coming months.
Look forward to it. And just lastly for this part, have you got a message for Bears supporters as we start looking ahead to 2021?
Just thank you to everybody for their kind words around everything that we've been doing and everything that we've said. We've tried to keep everybody up to date as much as possible, and I think all the feedback we've had has been positive. Everyone's been really understanding. I totally understand if people want to look at the situation with their season tickets and perhaps have that money back, or if they can roll on to next year. That's everyone's personal decisions. We're never going to put any pressure on anybody in regards to those sorts of decisions. We're a family-run club. We're doing our best to keep things moving forward with sponsorship and bringing money into the club and everything else. And I think we're doing we're doing okay at the moment. And I'm hoping that we'll be in a good position to go into next year, and that our other partners, like the Buttspark Arena and Coventry Rugby and everyone else can be in a positive position as well. So just thanks very much to all the supporters, and everyone's been pretty vocal, and it's all been really positive.
So thanks again to Bears Director of Rugby, Alan Robinson, for his time. And again, he's going to be joining us next week for the third part of this interview, where we're going to be talking all about the World Cup. But Craig, I think there's lots to explore from this part of the chat, and we've got to start with our exclusive, because we're only a little podcast. We don't get exclusives that often. And the news that the 2020 playing kit is going to be rolled over to next year. Now, I know you and I both loved that shirt, so I, for one, am really glad it gets to be shown off some more. Were you pleased to hear that?
Yeah, I think it's. I think I've seen a couple of other clubs have done it. Not every club's doing it, but it is the sensible approach to take. And as Alan said, lots of people were very positive about the kit. They really liked it. It really does feed into the city culture stuff, because it's a very traditional Coventry colours and on one of the kits, and then the two-tone style kit, black and white kit as well. So it's really good to hear, and there's actually been a fair bit of interest throughout lockdown on people wanting to buy kit as well. So and obviously with lockdown happening, Scorpion Sports haven't, the kit is ready to make is ready made by them, and it hasn't been available. So people will be pleased to know that I think in the autumn it'll be back on sale again, hopefully before Christmas, so people can buy it ahead of Christmas.
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate last year that my work colleagues bought me the black shirt as my birthday present. So might just have to mention the blue shirt for them this year and complete the set. The other big news in that chat that slightly more important than the playing kit was Alan mentioning that Richard Squires is going to be making the step up to head coach, and I know I'm pretty sure you feel the same. I've been really impressed with the impact Richard has had since he joined the Bears setup last year. I think it's terrific that he's making this step up, and it's really credit to the club as well of bringing him through, nurturing him through, giving him the opportunity, and saying, "Yep, you're good enough. The players respect you. We want to develop you further. Go for it," kind of thing. It's another reason to be excited in 2021, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I think for a club like the Bears, it's always got to be the way to go. Get a promising young coach in and develop them and give them an opportunity. I mean, you saw that happen with Tom Stang. Tom was at the club for a number of years and really, really became an established coach in League One, and a very well respected coach within the game. And obviously he got his big break by moving to London Broncos. So it's really great for Richard to get that opportunity. And I went to a training session. I'd seen Richard last season at a few games where he was involved, and one thing that really impressed me was that he was on the touchline, and he hadn't been at the club long, and he was working with the players, shouting to them, being vocal about what they're doing, assisting them, giving them pats on the back and helping them, and that massively impressed me. But then I went to a training session just before the start of this season. I'm going to call it this season, even though it's now last season. But I remember going to a coaching session and seeing how organised he was, and how switched on all the players were, and how focused they were during the session. I mean, it was a big session. There was probably at least 30 plus. I know that there was 2 teams playing through sets, and it was really, really focused, really switched on. And I know that the players really like him. They really respect him, and he's got a lot of great ideas, and he really knows what he's talking about as well. I think he's it just shows you that there is talent out there, and I think Alan is really adept at spotting that and spotting coaches that he knows have got the ability and a chance to develop. So I'm really pleased for Richard, and I'm really looking forward to having chats with him next season, and hopefully seeing the Bears move on to bigger and better things under him.
Yeah, definitely. And as Alan told us last week as well, Richard's been doing a lot of work sort of keeping the players together virtually throughout this pandemic, like hosting Zoom meetings and keeping all the squad spirit up and stuff. So again, that ties into exactly what you were saying there about how much the players like him and respect him. So yeah, really excited to see him get that opportunity. And it sounds like between Richard and Alan, it sounds like the recruitment plans are pretty solid as well, and the wheels are sort of kicking into gear there. I know you and I, to give listeners a peek behind the curtain, you and I are occasionally privy to things slightly earlier than they go public, and I know we've been teased a few things that we're pretty excited about, but we would have been at this point about now anyway, the sort of the recruitment cycle kicking in. But Yeah, it sounds like as you would expect from something that Alan is in charge of. It's well thought out. There's a lot of careful strategy behind it, and it sounds like Alan and Richard know what they want. They realize what the Bears need, and they're going about and trying to get it.
Yeah, I think it is a bit different for the Bears than some other clubs. The budget that other clubs operate under isn't quite there, so they can't just go out and get any player they want. But even clubs that operate under bigger budgets don't necessarily sign the right players. I think for Alan, it's about signing the right player with the right attitude, and also signing players of potential. The Bears really do give opportunities to players who he thinks, and this will be Richard as well, who think that will develop when they play regularly for the Bears, and improve and get opportunities to perhaps move on in the game. I think, alluding to Alan's interview, I think there will be some potentially difficult decisions this year, because one thing that Alan is very focused on is making the Bears competitive on the pitch, and that's unfortunately not always been the case. There has been, over the last 2 to 3 seasons, there's been some really positive results, but they have also struggled on the pitch at times. So I know that he really wants to strengthen to make sure that the guys are competitive. He's focused on making sure that the players that he's got on the pitch give it their all. If you get beaten by a better side, then that's fair enough, but you don't want to be beaten by someone because they're more enthusiastic. And one thing that Alan wants of all his players is that they give it 100%, and they leave everything on the pitch. So I know that they are actively talking to players that they think are the right fit for the club, and I'm very positive about the strength of the squad for next year, albeit that it's going to be in a very, very competitive league next year. You look at some of the signings in League One already for next year, and you've got ex-Super League players, you've got players dropping down who are in Super League academies. You've got players dropping down who are top quality Championship players. So it's a lot of clubs are spending big to try and get that promotion for next year, and it's going to be a very, very interesting league. I think there's some really strong teams, and I think, bearing in mind the lockdown this year and the cancellation of the season, I think there'll be a lot of clubs playing with loads of fans behind them as well. So it's going to be a really competitive league, I think. And also the introduction of Ottawa.
Of course.
So a potential trip to Canada, which fingers crossed I'll be able to do and you'll be able to do.
That'd be nice.
That's going to be another boost for League One, and the opportunity, a great opportunity for the Bears players to be playing abroad. They played Toronto 3 seasons ago now, was it? And that was an amazing experience. So for the squad this year to have another trip to Canada will be amazing.
Definitely. But yeah, I totally agree with what you were saying there. It's going to be a tough year next year, but I'm fascinated to see how the Bears step up to that challenge. And I guess, talking of stepping up to challenges, something that there's a big challenge on the horizon before, within the next few weeks at the time of recording, and that is this epic bike ride that a bunch of the players are going to be doing from Hull, the previous city of culture, back to Coventry, the next city of culture. Craig, you're quite a keen cyclist. That's a fairly long bike ride. That sounds like it's going to be quite the leg burner to do it in 2 days.
Yeah, well, I did a coast to coast bike ride from Cumbria over to Newcastle, and that was around about 200 miles. But I did it over 4 days, so they're doing 150 plus miles over 2 days. It's and they've not had that many weeks to train either. It's going to be a tough one. But actually, I think it's a really great thing. This squad of players could have quite easily, they've only played 3 games together. they could have quite easily said, right, okay, season's over, see you later, guys, and that's the end of it. But they've actually decided as a group to try and put something back into the club, and some of the players involved, likely won't be at the club next season. So it's a great thing as a group for them to do. What I would say in doing anything like that, it is a massive challenge, and you've really got to stick. Although a lot of people who aren't cyclists don't see it maybe as a team sport. With doing a challenge like that, it is very much working as a team. People taking turns to go to the front and all that sort of stuff. And there'll be real togetherness built. And the guys that do it will never forget the experience. It's a great thing that they're doing, and they're raising money for the future development of the club and to build a sustainable junior setup in Coventry, raising money. So it's a great thing that they're doing.
Yeah, and we'll put the link to the fundraising page in the show notes for this episode and on the website and on YouTube and all of that stuff. So anyone listening who perhaps hasn't spotted it yet can know where to go and throw some money if they've got some spare. And we'll be talking more about the development of the Bears junior setups in next week's episode, because we'll be going into a bit more detail there about the legacy grant that the Bears have been awarded as part of the World Cup celebrations, which again, it's almost £15,000 of cash to do some really exciting stuff with the junior setup. So that's great, and that's it elevates it from being so much more than just a World Cup match in the city. But there's actually going to be a real legacy for the sport in the region because of next year's World Cup. So we'll get into that with Alan next week. And one last thing to mention, and something that again people listening might want to get involved with, is the fact that Tritag Rugby is back. It's been given the all clear from the government. So that's up and running again with various measures in place. I know you're still pretty heavily involved in the Tritag. I've sort of not been able to do much since it got started because of dodgy knees and having a baby to look after. But you were back at the first session. Was it good to be back?
Yeah, I played my first game last week. Yeah, it was really enjoyable. I did worry about my fitness, but I've been trying to keep fit during lockdown, and it was really good to be back. You could genuinely see the excitement that everyone had, and lots of happy people throwing the ball around again. And for me, someone who hasn't played for a number of years, who has no desire to go back and do contact rugby of any kind, it's brilliant to throw a ball around. And Tritag Rugby is a great variant of rugby league. At times it feels like you're back playing a game of rugby league again. A few of the lads that in the team that I play with are ex-rugby league players as well, and they every now and then a bit of the old magic appears. It's really genuinely good fun. But I think the other thing as well is that there is a number of people within the team that I play in and all the other teams who've never played any form of rugby before. And the thing that Tritag does is increase the participation, levels of rugby league, and to see people learning how to play the ball and all that sort of stuff for the first time is really great. The teams are mixed as well, so you've got lots of women playing too, and it's really competitive. It's a really fast game and really competitive, and people really, really enjoy it. And the RFL, I think, are fully behind it as well, aren't they? So
yeah,
it's really great to see. I think there was 10 teams the other night. I think there's more than that playing in the Leamington League. So in Warwickshire itself, there's several hundred players playing rugby league, albeit a different variation of it. But that's got to be good for the sport, and I think it's something that the RFL and others need to get behind, because it gets people playing the game. who wouldn't ordinarily play it, who might be a bit worried about contact and all that sort of stuff. And it's really good fun.
Yeah, excellent. So there's plenty going on that people can get involved with. So if you are listening and like us, you're sort of cranking your rugby league part of your brain back into gear, maybe have a look at getting involved with Tritag if you fancy it. Do throw some sponsorship in the direction of those Bears players who are making that bike ride if you can afford it. And of course, keep your eyes peeled on coventrybears.com and on the social media channels for news of new players. And of course, hopefully the kit going on sale in time for Santa's rounds at the end of the year. But I think that probably feels about it for this show. But don't forget, we are going to be back for a third week in a row next week with the final part of our chat with Alan Robinson. And as I mentioned earlier, this time we're going to be talking about the World Cup. There, of course, is a game coming to Coventry. The reigning men's champions, Australia, taking on Scotland in a Group B match on a Friday night in Coventry. That's going to be fantastic. We'll talk about that. And also the legacy it could leave on our region with that really substantial amount of money being awarded to the Bears to get those junior side of things set up. So all going to be excellent. So do join us for that. And then beyond that, well, I'm sure we'll have a few things to talk about here and there. It might not necessarily be every week between that episode and the start of next season, but we will come back when there are talking points. And we might throw a few surprises out there as well. So, keep your eyes peeled and thank you for sticking with us and joining us as we've made our comeback. It's been really good to get back in the saddle. Don't forget to subscribe to this show to make sure you don't miss anything that we might throw out in the future. And if you're already subscribed, hey, tell a friend about somebody who might like to listen to us as well. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or just at coventrybears.com, and you'll find all the links there as well. But Craig, 2 out of 2. Thanks as always. Catch you next time.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.